Hey YouTube, it's Doug here from Bestie Custom Fab. Today I'm working on the 1950 Pontiac. I'm working on the radiator. I've got my rad mounts pretty much done. I've got to pull everything off and weld it and then put it back on. Lower mount there. I've got some rubber mounts for the bottom. And this is the top mount here. I know it looks confusing. Stick around, I'll explain it. So that's my radiator. It is out of I think a 2000 or a 2001 Camaro. So I didn't want the Corvette radiator. This is a Corvette chassis and engine and driveline and everything, but I didn't want the Corvette rad because it doesn't have a rad cap. It operates off the whole like there's a whole tank system, and I don't too fancy. I just want a rad cap. So anyway, I got this one off eBay. It's used. I think it's an 01 Camaro. It's got the rad cap. Everything else is the same. All my hookups for my transmission cooler is the same. The positioning of my inlet and outlet are the same. It mounts on an angle. Just everything works. So I built all the mounts. The mounts are all fabbed up. We'll get to that later. But today I'm working on mounting these two fans. I've got two 12-inch electric fans, and I want to put them on. And here's the deal. These fans are made so that you can just put them, you know, however you want to put them on the radiator like this and attach them directly to the rad. Well, the problem with that is that you're stopped at a red light. If it's a hot day, your fans could be ripping on high, but they're only sucking air through these two circles. The rest of the rad is just heating up. So the way to solve that is to build a shroud, and I've got some aluminum. I'm going to build a shroud. The other problem with that way of mounting them is these things. So these are just like little glorified zip ties. There's elbow angle brackets that go on here, and then you stick it through and put a plastic nut on the other side. It's not the best way to do it. And I was fucking around with one of these, just grabbing it to show you guys, and I literally broke it in my hand. Like, that's garbage. So if you use those, be aware your fans could just break and fall right off of there. These things are just shit. Look at this. No good. So I've got this piece of aluminum. It's I guess it's 10 gauge, about 1/8 material. I've got a line marked here for my width of my rad. I'm going to cut that with a regular skill saw. Aluminum cuts really well with this. So we'll cut that, and I've got a shape in mind. And it's just to keep it off the rad. That's kind of the shape there. I've got some dimensions. I'm going to use my homemade brake press. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to put some bends in it. And I'll show you when we get back. Okay, so I'm back. I've cut off that piece. I've started doing some layout here. Just a quick tip. If you're doing layout on a piece, you always want to start from the one end. So I'm starting here with a 1-inch bend. My next bend is going to be 1.5 inches from there. So total 2.5, but it's on the other side. So what you do is, if I can do this, lay out 2.5 on this side, always from the same end with your tape measure. From that 2.5, I got 14.25, comes out to 16.75. Lay that out here. The next one, 1.5 inches from there, that ends up being 18.25. So then I'll lay that out here, 18.25, and I'll cut off whatever's left after. I'd rather leave it a little bit long and trim that to suit. I don't want it to be too short in here. It's got a bolt through here, top and bottom. So I don't want to, there's not a lot of room to play there. It's only maybe 5/8 of an inch. So we'll trim that after. But yeah, always lay out from one end of the piece, no matter which side you're marking on. And that way everything will always end up square. Because if your piece of steel or aluminum isn't square, you could end up with a goofy piece that doesn't fit and you've wasted material. So don't do that. And don't use these. Garbage. Here's my super homemade hydraulic pneumatic brake press. Works pretty good for stuff like this. I've got it laid out. I've got it in there. I've got it on the marked line, and I'm looking for 45 degrees. So let's see what happens here. Ready? So I set up my angle finder to give me 22.5, which is half of 45. I'm trying to get a 45 degree angle here, if I didn't mention that. We're not quite there, so let's give it a little more. This thing just needs a little bit of tweaking here and there. Works pretty well. Okay, let's try that. That's a little much, but she flexes back. So take this off. Undo these things. And maybe a little more. And that releases the rams. And then I can pull it out. And there we go. We've got a pretty decent, close to 45 degree angle there. So back in it goes, flip it over. I'll have to loosen that off again. I'll pop it in this way. Next, next, next. And we're back. I've got all the bends finished. It came out pretty flat. I could kick these two bends here a tiny bit more, just to make them flat, but honestly, you bolt that down, it'll be fine. So I hesitated to cut it off here where I thought I should cut it, but turns out I could have, because it fits bang on. So I line up the top here with the top of that point, and you can see would have been perfect, but you never know. It's better to leave it long and cut it off later than cut it too short and fuck something up. So I'll trim that off now with my skill saw. And the other issue is I've got a gap here along both sides, and I think what I don't want is sucking warm air from the engine compartment back in through there, and I want it to suck right through the rad. So I've got this piece left over. I could just use my Sharpie, trace some lines on here, cut pieces of this, and stitch it in there with the spool gun. And I think I will do that. That way it's got a tight seal, and it's got to suck through the rad. There's no air escaping in from the side, because that's warm air from the engine compartment. You don't really want that. So that's what I'm going to do. So after I do that, then I will put my fans on here in such a way that I'm happy. Doesn't really matter how you do it. You have to make sure your fans are set so they pull through. Otherwise, it's not going to work right. But something like that, that's rough, and I will lay that out just like that. And it's looking like something already. And then I can lay out my holes. I'll lay out these holes, 4 on each fan. Drill that. I've got to still cut out the circle for the air to come through, because if you don't do that, then you're really an idiot. My brake press worked really well, and survived another day. So stick around. I'm gonna just add those pieces in there, lay out some holes, and then we'll come back and check it out. Looking good though. Okay, and it's basically finished. I've got the sides on it, as you can see there, so it's not sucking air from the engine compartment. It's just a few stitches on the inside with the spool gun, and I got the holes cut out for the fan centers, or whatever you call that. I don't know the technical term. So essentially these fans will suck air now through the whole rad because of that shroud. And I think it looks fucking cool too. I mean, you'll never see it. You won't even see this side. This side looks fucking terrible. But yeah, I used the jigsaw to cut out the holes for the fans. I used nutserts to mount everything, as you can see here. You can use nuts and bolts if you want. I like these things. They work well when you don't have enough room to, or enough material to tap through. So it's just a matter of putting this in, wiring it up, and that's it. That's my fan shroud. So I hope you like it. I'm going to get my rad and my rad mounts all done in the next day or two, and maybe do a video on that, or maybe you can wait till the next one. Anyway, Bessie Custom Fab, rock and roll.